It is Monday, December 15th. This is Irish Illustrated Insider. I'm Tim O'Malley, joined today by Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated, Pete Sampson of The Athletic, John Bryce of Football Scoop. We are 2 days removed from the Heisman Trophy voting. I had my first ever vote and did cast it for Jeremiah Love. Only 45 people nationally agreed with me out of 900 plus. Most went for Fernando Mendoza. 643 first place votes, and then Diego Pavia finishing second, well ahead of Love. Guys, just want to get your impression of first how not to act when you don't win, and also how to act when you do win, because both were on display over the weekend. Neither one involved who I believe the best player in the country is, Jeremiah Love, but I did not think he would win it, and I'll get into reasons for that later.
Yeah, I was kind of anticipating he would finish third because, Mendoza and Pavia would likely get the majority of the number one votes, and that's how it worked out. But what a great event! I thought the presentation was really good. I thought Jeremiah Love represented himself in the school really, really, really well. Marcus Freeman making it sound like Jay Love might choose to come back.
I don't,
I don't.
I think he was just teasing. And
I think he was. I just didn't expect him to tease to that magnitude.
He did that on another media appearance, I think, in the last
Did
week. Yeah, I think it. I don't want to compare Marcus Freeman to Brian Kelly, but sometimes head coaches make jokes that just don't land.
that one didn't land.
You're all for execution, Pete?
Yeah, I'm all for execution of people at that point. But it was. I don't know the last time I actually watched the Heisman ceremony.
2012.
Okay, yeah, it's been a minute, and I gotta say, I didn't really. Apparently, I had not read up on Fernando Mendoza's story as much as I should have. At all three of the, Love, Pavia, and Mendoza were incredible stories. And I think that, even though one maybe didn't handle it all that great afterwards, I thought it was a cool event for college football to have those three guys up there because there are different ways to get to the finish line. One of the great things about college football is everyone sort of does it differently. And, that was kind of on display Saturday night in New York.
Yeah, obviously the first time Notre Dame had someone in New York for that event in 13 years. That draws eyeballs. Then you have the unique pathways of Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt and Mendoza at Indiana, not only their individual, but their programs' unique pathways. So it was compelling. I watched it. Yeah, it was well produced and a little long for my taste, but it was good.
It was long.
It did start to drag a little bit there.
Protracted. Speaking of, real quickly, I'll just share this, and then speaking of protracted, that farcical CFP selection show Sunday a week ago, I was told by someone involved that every team in the field was supposed to know, or everyone was supposed to know the entire field by 12:20, and I think it was 12:32 that ESPN finally got around to revealing it. So it wasn't just media and fan types who were sitting there in angst. There were logistical people, ADs, coaches, players, you name, all involved who were anticipating knowing their fates a full 12 minutes earlier. They couldn't even do that on time.
That for three teams, that must have been rough. Sitting around waiting
Yeah.
on that has got to be a feeling. So I think the three reasons I wrote this today too. The three reasons Love kind of lost was his worst game. Obviously, he wasn't fully involved in his worst game, and that JB, how long did he sit on the sideline? How long did he not touch the ball? 1 hour against Miami. But his worst game was one often replayed, and in this case, I don't mean the ACC network. I just mean every time someone brought up Jeremiah Love, Miami was able to point out we held Jeremiah Love to 33 yards. So I think his worst game got off to a bad start. I firmly believe the 0-2 start buried him from any consideration for 2 months. I think if you're 1-1 and Jeremiah Love, all right, just all you got to do is knock that pass down. You're 1-1, and Jeremiah Love had the game-winning touchdown and a reception touchdown against A&M. That helps you quite a bit. And then he needed two bills and three touchdowns against Stanford. He didn't need to get hurt in the first quarter. Separate of anything, like Fernando Mendoza made the two clutch throws of the Big Ten championship game. That obviously helped him too. But separate from Mendoza, I think Love needed all three of those things, and none of those things.
Yeah, I would agree. In addition to all the other spectacular plays that he made during the season, the one-handed grab.
Yeah, that in a win, that's a huge thing.
Yeah, that was the massive thing. I just want to say, Pete, I mean, I want to agree with what Pete says about Mendoza. I realized, like, going into it, having known his, what he said post game after winning the Big Ten championship game. People were kind of looking at him cross-eyed, but he is a great story, and I do like the way the ball comes out of his hand. I can't predict his future beyond the collegiate level, but it's a great story. There's a lot of genuineness to him. I from that perspective, I was happy for him, but disappointed for Love because, when you talk about the greatest player in
Yeah.
college football, which I thought, it was kind of what happened last year, or the perception of what happened last year with Hunter winning it from Colorado. I thought that gave Love a pretty good chance, but when you start to think about who's going to split the first place votes, I kind of anticipated it would be a third place finish for him.
We thought we might finish the weekend with an extension for Marcus Freeman. There is no extension yet for Marcus Freeman, but I think all four of us believe that is coming. Is that fair to say, everyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which means Notre Dame can turn its attention, and Marcus Freeman can turn his attention to the next linebacker coach. We did touch on Max Bulla leaving for Michigan State last week. That won't be our last discussion on assistant coaches in this podcast, but any early returns, JB, on a search for a linebacker coach in the fresh wake of Bulla leaving? But I bet you Freeman and Ash and the defensive staff thought, well, this is a guy that is probably going to seek defensive coordinator ability when they saw Michigan State open up that position.
Yeah, not a whole lot yet. I would like to note that while Trey Reader has been offered that Michigan State position, a 2-year deal, and is expected to go, Notre Dame is trying very hard to keep Reader in-house. It's my understanding that Notre Dame brass have heard from a number of people, the type who have their names on buildings on campus, telling them how valuable Trey Reader is, his relationship with the current linebacking room, his football IQ and kind of wisdom beyond the years, as it was put to me. So Notre Dame is seeing if it can do anything to keep Trey Reader in the fold there. I would note also, though, that Notre Dame is in a hiring freeze and campus wide, and I think that is certainly an impact on some various economic dynamics for both Trey Reader and some other positions, is my understanding.
Well, it's tough for Trey Reader because he's not in the position. I mean, a hiring freeze for, Chris Ash, Mike Mickens, Mike Dunn, it doesn't
Yeah.
impact you all that much, but a hiring freeze
Right.
for Trey Reader does impact you a little bit.
Well, we all can remember a couple years ago, or a few years ago, I guess it is now, when Nick Lazinski did not get the linebacker job at Notre Dame, and how well liked and respected he was. Maybe kind of sounds like a little bit like the Reader relationship within the team and the players. Pete might be able to answer that better. He's a little bit more in contact with Clark Lee, but Nick Lazinski,
Yeah.
would
Nick's
be
brilliant. Yeah.
would be an automatic fit for Notre Dame. A guy that really, he did a great job with with the players, with the parents. I know that the parents liked him and respected him. I would have to believe that. And some of the comments that I know Marcus Freeman made when Lazinski went to Vanderbilt with Clark Lee would be a really, really, really good fit for Notre Dame.
That would be an excellent hire. I know we always sort of look at, like, what are the connections? Who are Notre Dame alums out there? I think Nick Lazinski would basically walk back to Notre Dame if you asked him to.
And they should ask him to, I think, then, honestly.
Yeah. And I think, in a lot of ways, he was Trey Reader before Trey Reader. Like,
Right.
and Notre Dame's had a really nice run of guys. Let's not forget Max Bulla was sort of brought on as not a full-time linebackers coach after James Laurinaitis was brought on not as a full-time linebackers coach. So they're doing a pretty good job at that position. I would trust Notre Dame to make that hire correct
Boy,
and get somebody real good.
that's a hell of a point right there by you, Pete, because it literally went Lazinski to Laurinaitis to Bulla to Reader. That's
As non-linebacker
and-
coaches.
Yeah, it's non-linebacker.
and Reader, right, as not linebacker coaches, and Reader certainly is on the front end of his career, but that's pretty heady stuff when you look at the trajectories of all of those guys, and the fact that I believe Pat Fitzgerald reached out individually to Trey Reader, and I think he's probably heard from some SEC coaches as well.
How do you feel about this trajectory of linebacker coaches? Because they did go from Clark Lee as a linebacker coach to Marcus Freeman as a linebacker coach to Al Golden as a linebacker coach. Those guys were awfully good too before you could get Max Bulla. And Max Bulla, do you guys remember we asked Bulla before his first year, so maybe like spring, something along the lines of how he's settling into the job? Because remember, Al Golden was technically a linebackers coach. That's how it worked. And he's like, well, I've been in this job for a year. Like, oh, okay. Like, in other words, you guys just didn't understand that I was actually the
Yeah.
linebacker coach because Al Golden was doing bigger things. But I thought that was that's Max to a T right there. Anytime you ask Max a question, you get a pretty good answer. So, very quickly, guys, we had a question. I'm just going to put it here from Jay Holtg. Over under on staff changes this year. He put it at 2.5, and I am including Bulla as number one.
Go way over. How much do you like? How much can I put down on this?
Yes. Well, ask Jay Holtz. He might bet you. There's no. I'm going over as well, but I always go over.
Yeah, over.
I would say over as well.
As well as Notre Dame does at pretend linebacker coaches and real linebacker coaches. It's also the case for their cornerback recruiting. Before we get to an award for Leonard Moore and what should be four more, I want to turn it over to Priester. This quarterback recruiting continues, and we're not only talking about the class already signed.
Yeah, 2027. Moving on to 2027, the eighth verbal commitment was Ace Ashton, Ace Alston, which is a mouthful.
Heck of a good nickname though.
Which is why they'll call him Ace. Yeah, it's a really great name. And I really think, where's he rated? Somewhere in the hundreds. I really think that if he was an inch or two taller, he would be a top 100 player. I like him. Really, really explosive to the football. As we're speaking now, we're a little bit away from a decision today by Xavier Hassan, who is rated number 61, I believe, by 24/7 Sports. A little bit more size. I would predict that if Notre Dame gets Hassan, he would be the guy working at the boundary with Alston working at the field. I think Hassan has a little bit of safety in him. I know that he actually played that position during his freshman season. He's been a varsity player. He's looked like a varsity player since his freshman season. So when most people hear this, they will know one way or another whether Hassan chose Notre Dame. But I think there was a lot of confidence when the sun rose in South Bend today that Hassan would be joining Alston as cornerback prospects for Notre Dame. That would lift them to a total of 9 verbal commitments in the class of 2027. That'd be a pretty damn good pair of corners right there.
I wanted to add this briefly on Ace. First of all, Notre Dame beat out USC for Ace. I think when it ultimately came down to the final couple of teams, and it had a whole heck of a lot to do with Mike Mickens. And then I caught up with Ace's high school coach, Evan Dreyer at Anderson, and they've played for the state championship, I want to say in 4A in Ohio back-to-back years, and they've sent a number of players to FBS and power conference programs. And of course, that's where Zeke Correll comes from, that same program as well. But he gave me this quote. He said, Ace is a top-tier defensive back in the country. Due to his work ethic and commitment, he does 3 workouts daily. His development from middle school to high school has laid the foundation for his success, and his development under Coach Mick will make him one of the elite corners in the country. So pretty high praise. And Evan Dreyer, the head coach there, I think set a Cincinnati state record as maybe the youngest ever high school head coach in the state of Cincinnati. I think he got hired for his first head coaching job at 23. He's still only like 38, but he's seen a lot of ball. He's put a lot of dudes in college, and some high praise from him. I tweeted that out, but I wanted to share that commentary on the pod here as well.
Love and Leonard Moore were named first team All-American by Associated Press. I believe Jeremiah Love will sweep the 5 awards where you have to become a unanimous first team All-American. Those are Associated Press, the AFCA, Football Writers Association, which I voted for, so I know those votes are in. The Sporting News and Walter Camp Foundation. Do you guys think Leonard Moore will be unanimous or just consensus? And I want to remind you, Xavier Watts was only a consensus, not a unanimous All-American last year, which was just insane. He was 4 of the 5. You do vote before the playoff run and before he got even more famous, but
yeah, sure. Safeties all over the country intercept 13 passes in 2 years.
That's insane. I will point out, unfortunately, it was the Football Writers Association that named him the second team, but not me. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, he was a finalist. He was a finalist for the Thorpe Award. I think, I know people are very angsty about stuff, but I don't have a problem with Caleb Downs winning that.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah.
So I think Caleb Downs is the best safety in the country. Leonard Moore is the best corner in the country. They should both be unanimous All-Americans at those positions.
Yeah.
Should be unanimous. I think it'll be consensus.
Yeah, I really hope it's unanimous because Leonard Moore's a guy that when you talk to him, you kind of root for him automatically. I know you can root for a lot of players, but I don't know. Leonard Moore just seems like the most normal human being in the world until you see him in a football uniform and he grows 6 inches and his arms elongate too, because he does not seem that big when you talk to him upstairs at the Irish Athletic Complex. And then you see him on the field, you're like, oh my God. What is Stanford doing? Where are you quickly, I did want to include it in the podcast. It was actually a question for Monday Musings. I thought you'd like it. Are more in love your best 1-2 punch, offense, defense? So you can't be like quarterback, receiver, can't be two receivers. Your best 1-2 punch in your coverage era. Harder one for Priester, obviously, but that's a good question to
That's
me.
a
Think
yeah,
longer.
that's an interesting question. I went back to 92 when Reggie Brooks had a ridiculous season where he gained 1,343 yards on the ground, 13 touchdowns. The more shocking number is the 8 yards per carry. That was the same year that Bryant Young had 7.5 sacks. I would go back that far. Part of the problem with choosing from the Holtz era is that a lot of the wealth was, frequently spread around when it came to running backs and receivers and stuff. But unless I missed one, and I was just going for I just looked at the years where Notre Dame as an entire team were the most productive, and I
Yeah,
stopped at
yeah,
in 92. I thought Brooks BY was
that's pretty.
that'd be a pretty good pairing there.
I, yeah, a little bit more recent. You could go Harrison Smith and then pair him with Kyle Rudolph or Tyler Eifert or Michael Floyd or Zach Martin. So that would be a pretty good combo too. But um, Love should be top, what, back half of the top 10. More, I guess we'll see. But
Right.
first half of the first round.
Eifert Teo.
That was mine. That's what I went back to was Eifert Teo, and I think this is a better combo in terms of what they actually are for the NFL. Manti, if Notre Dame chose not to play the BCS championship game of 2012, Manti Teo would be remembered differently by every Notre Dame fan because he was unreal in the 12 regular season games. He was absolutely unbelievable. He unfortunately had his worst game of his career, or of his elder
I'm,
part of his career against Alabama.
I'm obviously the neophyte as it's Irish specific, but didn't Kyron Williams and Wu overlap? Weren't
They did. That
They
was
did.
That's a good
2020
call.
team.
Yeah, Wu
Yeah,
was
so that was
2020 though. Wu was gone when Kyra. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, they both played against
No, that's a
Clemson.
great call,
That's a
They
JP.
great
both
call.
scored against Clemson.
yeah.
And it could have had Kyron and Kyle Hamilton if Hamilton didn't have the
That's
pinch
what
fat.
I thought. Yeah, because that was the weird COVID year. So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
a really good
Anyway,
one. But yeah, let's see. Let's hope Leonard Moore can bring home unanimous All-American honors because he probably deserves it. Maybe revenge for Xavier Watts. We'll be back with segment 2, burning up the boards. With football season in full swing and the holidays approaching, I've been looking to find the best deal on tickets, both for family and friends, but also as a memorable gift idea. That's why I want to offer the sponsor of today's Burning Up the Boards, SeatGeek, a huge shout out. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. Whether you're an Irish fan looking for a ticket to the AC/DC concert in September, or any of the NFL playoff matchups coming up down the road, SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. But every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use Irish10, that's all capital letters and the number 10, for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. 10% off any tickets with promo code Irish10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. Our first question, segment 2 from Baby Chira. Do you foresee language being changed to the college football playoff criteria so something like this doesn't happen again? Perhaps if an unranked Power 4 conference champion loses automatic qualifier status to an at-large because of their ranking. Something to prevent 2 group of 5 qualifiers, perhaps.
yeah, I would anticipate the language being changed. And again, just because I think it's significant, they're meeting next month at the host site of the CFP title game, which is Hard Rock Stadium in that area of Miami Gardens, Florida. But yes, I would expect that to be something like the group of 5 or the top 5 conference champions have to be ranked within the top 25 of the actual final CFP or something along those lines, top 16 of the CFP, something along those lines to ensure a little bit more worthiness to the process and to ensure that you don't have 10-2 Notre Dame incredibly exponentially worthy of being there. certainly Vanderbilt at 10-2 with legitimate, credible arguments to be there. Even 9-3 Texas, all of those things. So yes, I do expect that language to be changed. I do expect some of that criteria to be changed, and also continue to be told over the weekend after Pete Bavacquid initially said, well, it's going to move to 16. We hope by 26. We don't know if it can be 26, more like 27. Then Pete, I think last week, expressed some optimism that it might now be 26. And over the weekend, more people thinking that this backlash and consternation is going to ultimately be a good thing for the 2026 field, if I could learn how to speak.
Think about how tidy it would be had it been 16 teams this year. I mean, it had a chance to just fit. And it fit pretty well last year too, but it got away from. Another thing to think about, T.O., is that a trip back to the national championship game would have been a trip back to Miami Gardens, and how stinking cool would that have been?
Well, we were trying to move the championship game to Glendale, Arizona, but to no avail. It did not work, but I'm glad it did not work out because we won't be traveling to it, so it didn't matter quite as much. But yes,
you can go.
Yeah, that's true. I like to go for free.
We're not going to pick. Yeah, we're not picking up the tab, but you can go.
I'll see if I can. I can see if I can finagle a ticket for free. I know just where to look.
Where are you staying?
Aer Lingus. You know where I'm staying. There's no doubt. Maybe Aer Lingus will fly me out there for free. Next question from 618 Irish. Rank the top 5 players that have NFL or transfer choices that would have the biggest impact if they return for 2026. Only consider players that might realistically return, so we are not including the 2 running backs, guys.
Pete, why don't you jump in there?
Adon Schuler would, after you remove the running backs from the equation, Adon Schuler would be way up there for me. After that, Christian Gray. Beyond that,
Schroth was my next one.
Yeah, I mean, and then you just get an offensive lineman, right? Like, I don't think there's anybody. Wagner. Is there anybody else besides like that? There's a group of offensive linemen like Emil Wagner, Billy Schrouth, Ashton Craig's not going anywhere, but then it's secondary players. Everybody else is pretty young, I guess. I don't think Boubacar was nearly good enough this year to jump.
I don't think he will.
I mean, he's worth mentioning, but he doesn't strike me as somebody that is looking to leave, because I don't think he put enough on tape to leave.
Yeah, I would strongly agree with those. I would also say Jalen Sneed. Jalen Sneed has one more year left. He played some of his best ball down the stretch. He handled, I think, very well, very maturely, losing some playing time early in the year, and that was initially very difficult for him. And then he sort of gathered himself and played much better. So he's a guy that could get a huge payday on the NIL market, and would probably be a UDFA, but have a chance to make a roster in the NFL. But it could be a potentially significant return for Notre Dame, particularly when you consider the late season injury to KVA and how long you expect to be without him to open next season. And you're talking probably not having KVA for the first 2 months of the season, being a very real possibility, which Oof. I'm told by people on campus has much greatly impacted the desire to retain Jalen Sneed.
Well, that's a great point, JB. And how long has Jalen Sneed been at Notre Dame? It seems closer to 6 years than 4 for me.
He came in with Trey Reader.
Yeah. Well, and he preserved a year of eligibility his freshman year, and I think the perception coming out of the season was that he hadn't done that. I got a guy that's outside of the parameters of the question asked by 618 Irish, and it's probably not realistic. But if Jason Onye could come back for another year to play defensive tackle, that dude was trending up through the last half of this season really, really nicely.
Well, he's a grown man that had to take a year off of football, so you shouldn't have expected him to be great at the beginning of the year. He could really concentrate on football.
And that's why I say, I don't know if when we met with him weeks ago, he said he'd be interested. He hadn't pursued it yet, but he'd be interested, and it would require some red tape to make it happen. But I mean, that's the kind of story where you would think that they would go out of their way to try to accommodate somebody that conquered his situation and ended up playing really good football for Notre Dame.
And you mean the NCAA, right? Because you know Notre Dame.
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I do.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I would say, I mean, I would have put Wagner in this, but when I just taken Bavak at his word, he just dropped Emil Wagner in there along with Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love, so I assume he's leaving. But if not, my list was Schuler, Schroff, Wagner, Gray, only because I mean Zachary and Golden and the freshman and more. You could Christian Gray would really help to come back because you want to have him there, but you want the best players possible. But my gosh, talk about a position of where you could find a young player to step in that won't cost an arm and a leg. I think that is part of it. Gray, as much as he wanted to leave before the season started, he didn't have a good enough year to go pro. Um, Especially with, I would think, all the upper body injuries. I would almost think the only reason Gray would leave would be more money elsewhere, and maybe he'd graduate from Notre Dame in time or something. But I put Gray behind Schuler, Schroff, and Wagner simply because of the depth. With Sneed, I mean, there's an obvious landing spot that Notre Dame has to overcome because he would start and not rotate. I can't believe how Jalen Sneed went from all of us saying this is his last year at Notre Dame to Notre Dame has to overpay to retain him at this point because of
I
Yeah.
mean, it's like
his injury.
it feels like Bauman last year, where he's gone, he's gone, he's gone. Then Cooper Flanagan tears his ACL or his Achilles
Yeah.
in the postseason. You're like, actually, could you come back?
Mm-hmm.
Snead obviously is much more productive than Bauman was and healthier. So, you know, I think you just got to adjust on the fly. I think Jalen Snead was a major luxury retention person a month ago, and now he's closer to a
Yeah.
necessity.
Yeah.
Schuler's number one on my list without a doubt. And I just think it would be a damn shame if we don't see, Schuler, Tay Johnson, Leonard Moore, and Christian Gray playing in that secondary because I mean, returning for a year, I'd have to go back and dig. Tim, you're better at it off the top of your head, but a returning group, starting group like that, good
That's
Lord. And it's a good point about the two young guys in Zachary and Dallas Golden.
And
You'd
Gray
feel
will beat him out. I'm just saying, like
no, oh yeah,
those.
absolutely. But
Yeah.
you don't hesitate. By next year, you're not even hesitating putting those guys on the field when you need to.
Right. Right.
All right, my turn to read here, and I will go with question number three. Black Irish 85, over under the number of transfers or players leaving for the NFL. I will set it per Black Irish 85 at 10.5.
Transfers plus leaving for the NFL is
Oh,
way over,
Yeah.
astronomically over. More over than Pete was over on the coaches. How's that?
yeah.
I don't know how you're supposed to balance that out for coach for player. Was it 1 for 3? I don't know how that works out. But
Yeah, it's just hard to figure out what that number is going to be because
it is.
I wrote down 17 names as candidates.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah,
That's a
I
good.
feel like I could come up with that pretty quickly. So definitely over 10 and a half.
Yes. I would probably still take the over at 15 and a half.
Yeah, I think here's a funny way of looking at it. If all the guys that could go pro don't, then you're still going way over because everybody's going to get pushed out for those guys coming back. Like if you bring back every one of your pro prospects, then it affects that position, and those people aren't going to. You're not going to keep them. And remember, 27 freshmen are coming in, and they are guaranteed a spot on this football team unless something goes terribly wrong. They have to make a mistake to off the field to not be guaranteed a spot on the football team. You don't have that with anybody else. The 27 freshmen are as safe as you get. Notre Dame's not going to.
Yeah, and just to remind, like that may sound like a shocking number, but remember we live in an era now where you want the bottom half of the depth chart to leave. You need them to,
You need them to leave the
or
team.
you ask them to.
You ask them to. You renegotiate to the point where there's a 0% chance somebody that came in and got 300,000 is going to stay for 50,000, right?
Yeah, I mean, the more interesting question is like how many guys leave that Notre Dame wanted to stay?
That's the great way of putting it.
And
That
Notre
would
Dame
be
has done a
way
really
under.
good job with that. Like, all due respect to Jabron Payne, but if Jabron Payne leaves, that's not somebody the staff's going to be like, okay, great, good
Yeah.
luck. We
Well,
need that spot for Javian Osborne and Jonas Walton. Um, if a Don Schuler leaves, that's different.
Mhm.
If you have a front, like say I don't know, frontline. If a frontline underclassman start, like if Tay Johnson left, that's not the same as Jabron Payne.
No, I think that's
So
a good point. Maybe 5.5 people that Notre Dame care about leaving
yeah,
because
I mean, I just think back to like players who left that Notre Dame wanted to stay. I go back to like the Styles, Lorenzo Styles, Logan Diggs. I mean, that was after spring practice. They don't really lose guys that they want to
yeah,
stay unless they're going pro, and going pro makes sense.
yeah. So Buckner, that was a year that they lost guys that they wanted to stay a little bit with
Yeah,
Buckner,
but that was a
Styles.
while ago.
That was a while ago. December of 23, Flores and Merriweather, but it was kind of like, all right, we'll be fine. We'll live through this moment and just get new players to come in to the
Yeah.
team. I wanted Flores to stay. I remember thinking I thought he'd be a good productive player at Notre Dame. Merriweather, it didn't really matter. That's a good question. 5.5 that they care about leaving because that you're looking at Schroth, Schuler, Gray, Wagner, Sneed, and the guy we have not mentioned on this podcast yet, who's number 6, Jaden Greathouse. There's another one that we haven't even mentioned yet.
Yeah.
He was among my 17, definitely. Definitely. I mean, Schroth is a really good football player and probably could just move on to the NFL. But as we've said a couple times, he played his best game by far against USC, and that was a game in which he was injured. I know the Joe Moores and the Harry Heastands of the world would be telling a guy like Billy Schroth, you need to stay and get another year. I'm not sure that that's applicable like it once was with regard to offensive linemen, but I'm just saying it as a football observer. He should stay.
I agree with you. He's a guard and he's not Quentin Nelson. That's one way of, and he played a half a year.
Yeah, I mean, he had a mid-round pick type of year. Like I think he could come back and be a early, like a second round type of
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
I think so. But again, also, it's not as simple as come back and improve your draft stock. It's also come back and here's what we have your slot value. Is that
yeah.
worth you coming back, or is that worth you trying to go on to the NFL, or
Mhm.
is that worth you signing for 7 figures somewhere? I believe Emil Wagner will get a 7 figure deal somewhere else.
And that helps Billy Schroth stay at Notre Dame and get a higher deal if Emil Wagner's 7 figures go out the door. Like it's a lot
Well,
moving. There's a lot of moving parts.
that will create a new category of Notre Dame players, standout players leaving. If he as opposed to going to the NFL, he goes.
Yeah, well, I think that's why Pete mentioned Tate Johnson. He can't go to the NFL, but
Yeah.
he can
Well,
command
it's
the amount of money he wants right now.
like players last year that Notre Dame was fine leaving included Pendleton, Coogan, Spindler.
Yeah,
Like those are good players, Coogan in particular, but I think that just the way the roster's built, it's crazy to think that they would be fine or not fine, but just be like, Emil Wagner, good luck to you. But like that's sort of where the position is.
You kind of have to do that.
And renegotiations are happening right now and are a
cool.
very serious part of that. I apologize to you. I saw you.
No, you're right. I'm glad you
You
brought that up.
shush it.
It's huge. Go ahead.
It's renegotiation season right now, especially with no bowl or playoff. It's coming earlier than what it came a year ago.
JB, I want to jump onto that because I think I think you bounced out for a second. Guys that came in that got because you highly touted freshmen at important positions that got paid a lot of money last year. They have to renegotiate for less money now. You're definitely not paying your third string player $300,000. You're asking him to take a $250,000 pay cut to stay at Notre Dame as a
Yes,
backup.
I would say, yeah, there are freshmen on the Notre Dame roster that probably are being asked to return for 1/10, 1/15, 1/20th of what they arrived at Notre Dame making. I'm not exaggerating.
Whew, boy, that's significant.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
We have a question from Name, Image, and Thickness. In terms of non-quarterback player caliber and hype when the news broke, do you expect Notre Dame's top line portal acquisition this year to be above or below the level of Malachi Fields?
At or
Top
above.
line.
At or above.
For a defensive tackle?
No.
No, I think they're saying top of the line.
Top of the
So
line.
whoever
Oh.
Notre Dame's top of the line.
I need a dash in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
At or above. I loved Malachi Fields coming in. I mean, I can't explain how much I've liked. Well, I have told you everybody how much I like Malachi Fields coming in. I said it when he was still on the Virginia's football team. So no, Malachi Fields. Well, it's not going to be a quarterback, so it's not Riley Leonard or Sam Hartman level, but I would say at or above Malachi Fields, well above Bo Collins and that
I'll
group.
say at Malachi Fields.
That's good.
Yeah,
You,
I
you
think
have
that's a
some.
tough one.
You have somebody in mind there, Pete?
I mean, I like Nick Marsh, but everyone likes Nick Marsh.
Yeah.
I think that would be at Malachi Fields.
I was
There's
putting him
a
above Pete because it'd have more eligibility.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at it that way. There's a defensive lineman from Wake Forest who entered the portal over the weekend who's pretty interesting. Mateen Igbaragba. He's a two-time transfer. He started at Georgetown. He's also 6'3", 296, and Notre Dame could use a little bit more 6'3", 296. But I don't know if that would move the needle as much as like we sort of know who Jared Dawson was more last year than Mateen Igbaragba, whose name I can't really pronounce. But I'm just saying like that would be fine. I don't really care that people don't know who he is. He's a good player and would fill a major position of need.
Yeah, I think maybe 247 right now has Marsh as the number one player in this portal class. So that
They
a
did
two,
until this weekend when
yeah.
Igbaragba jumped in the portal. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Ibaragba, I
thank
believe
you.
Notre Dame has some early traction there, and I think he's got a couple of years left. He did start his career at Georgetown, but I think he only played in 4 games this year for Wake. And so,
I I
go
was
ahead,
looking
Pete.
at his bio. I think he is down to his last year,
Okay, all right,
unless there's a medical, because he burned
right.
at Wake Forest. He burned 2 years at Georgetown, and then I think this year he burned a year. His junior year, he only played in 4 games, which is why he has the fifth year option.
I think there's an
Okay.
interesting wide receiver out there from Rutgers by the name of KJ Duff, 6'6", 225, caught 60 with 2 years of eligibility. I'm not sure how feasible this is. I just wanted to get the name out there. 2 years of eligibility, caught 60 passes, averaging 18.1 yards per catch. When you catch 60 passes and you average 18.1, a whole bunch of those completions are downfield. He
Yeah.
had
Oh yeah.
seven touchdowns, great side, great length, even longer than Malachi Fields. Probably not the type of physical receiver that he is, but a massive catch radius. I thought he was an interesting name with 2 years of eligibility. So again, I don't know exactly how feasible that is, but he's an interesting. He's a good football player.
Big fan of the possible Nick Marsh situation. That would be nice to start off Notre Dame's wide receivers because then your negotiations with Jaden Greathouse change. You can start asking Jaden Greathouse to come back or tell him we'll see you later. We'll get somebody else. That is also how that works when you get Nick Marsh. Next question, PA Irish 5. With the season over, what are your top 3 plays from 2025? And this is my caveat per me. You can choose 3 defining plays if you don't want to go 3 spectacular plays.
You guys, you just want to kind of throw them out here
Yeah,
collectively.
I mean, my defining play is the non-call on Heinisch for the touchdown. And my other defining play is the Leonard Moore goes for a double move at the end of a half, and a Don Schuler lets the ball be caught in front of him for a
That was
touchdown.
on my list.
That was the defining. That was almost number one over Donovan Heinisch not getting the egregious hold call that would have forever changed it. Like you're not converting 4th and goal from the 25 or whatever that would have been. So those two, unfortunately, are probably the most defining moments of the year. But there were some sensational positive plays for Notre Dame.
The
My
most
positive is Fields' catch is my last one against Pitt because I actually said in the press box, along with other people, oh my God, when he made the catch. So I don't usually speak in a press box. That was insane. That was an insane catch.
Yeah, I think that comment was made. It was a chorus of people saying it together. I mean, the most atypical play of the season was a Don Schuler letting the ball play him, so to speak. And I still contend when you see replays of that. I think his instinct was I'm going to have a chance to pick this off, as opposed to what he typically did as the season progressed. He'd play through the football. and didn't. The one-handed catch was by Fields was ridiculous. I also think that the first one, the first big play to Fields against Purdue, which was perfectly thrown by Carr, that was kind of a harbinger of things to come with Carr's ability to so accurately throw the football down the field.
A couple special teams on both sides of the coin. The fake punt at Stanford was one of my favorite plays of the year.
Yeah.
Also, how Boston College said, "We dare you to kick a field goal at the end of the first half," was also kind of a defining play of the year, but in the opposite direction.
That was weird. That prevent situation was very strange. You're just
So,
like,
you go ahead. You go ahead and kick the field goal.
have 15 more yards. You're welcome to it. Then you're going to have to kick it.
It was kind of like the end of the first half of A&M.
Yeah, that
when Ash was real lenient defensively, and Bond ended up having a shot at a 52-yarder and missed it.
And I would also point to Jadarian Price returning yet another kickoff for 6
That's
against USC.
Well, especially USC, yeah.
I mean, Jeremiah Love's entire box score against USC was unbelievable.
Yeah, I tried to leave Love out of it because he would be 1, 2, and 3. Well, no, Fields would be 1. But Love's first opening run against USC, when you consider Joe Otting helped spring him, was pretty cool. He actually didn't score, which is really weird for Jeremiah Love. The spin move against Pitt was a fun moment.
I love the catch against A&M. We already mentioned it.
Yeah, the
one-hand catch. The Navy touchdown where the whole world thought he was down except for him.
Yes, that's right.
And stayed on his feet.
I
mean, there were so good. I loved I realize it wouldn't necessarily fall into the top picks here in this for this question, but Tay Johnson's pick 6 to start the Pitt game was just like, okay, there we go. Okay,
really shut up a couple of people sitting to my left in that press box.
I was gonna say that's why the spin move by Love was pretty cathartic for my brethren there that like to read previews at Pittsburgh, because
I will always be curious as to who the guy was at the Pitt game that sat down and this is where we turn the tide before the first kickoff. He obviously
was like, Heinz Mason, you're gonna cook him up to me. I got your back, Mason. I'm like, okay.
Wow. How do you say that in a press box?
Great question.
I don't.
He also fell asleep, right, Pete? Did he fall asleep?
He did fall asleep later in the game while watching a high school game on his phone.
Ah.
Wow.
Really good times. I'm sorry. Let's do a podcast on that.
We didn't even mention the 94-yard run at BC.
Yeah, because Love has 50 of these things. That's why I voted for the Heisman.
I know.
Yeah. Well, Xavier Watts taunting the sideline, but it was his own sideline.
Yes. None of these are better than Xavier Watts talking the USC sideline, though. That is an all-time. That considering you clinch a playoff spot, that's amazing. That's just the savageness of Xavier Watts turning his head and looking back at USC sideline. And Jimmy Clausen, we were next to Jimmy Clausen, Priester, and that's when he finally turned to look at all the heckling USC fans.
He was getting it that day, no doubt.
All right.
JB, you're up.
Question number 6. Stop. Hammer time. Which player would have benefited the most from playing in a bowl game? Which players would have benefited the most from a long playoff run? Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
I'll throw Greathouse out for the long playoff run.
A long playoff run.
Playing well at a long playoff run would be Jaden Greathouse, of course, not just playing. But
I guess, look, I think CJ Carr would have really benefited. Because let's think about CJ Carr's season in totality. He played in 3. Let's say he played in 3 big games: Miami, A&M, USC. USC, he played poorly. A&M, I thought he played well. Miami,
he fought through it.
He played how he was asked to play.
Yeah.
So I think he could have doubled his big game experience in the months of December and January. So I think he would have been the biggest beneficiary of a long playoff run. And I don't think it would have benefited him to play in a bowl game against BYU, but if he played in the playoffs, I think you would have had a much better version of CJ Carr going into 2026 than what ultimately you're going to have.
Speaking of defining moment plays, the touchdown pass by Carr against Miami to Micah Gilbert. Not that we necessarily saw a whole bunch of plays where he created with his feet like that, but that told you, okay, CJ Carr's a real deal. player that would benefit the first bowl game was Aeneas Williams.
That's what I was.
I mean, that's like
Really
top of the list, absolute top of the list.
That's my only option for the bowl game. That is a huge. They don't need to play in a bowl game, but boy, Aeneas Williams would have done himself some good for both Notre Dame as his suitor or anyone else for his suitors.
Yeah. Joe Otting, Sullivan Absher, maybe a couple of other younger offensive linemen who would have been thrust into the equation, be it a bowl game or an extended playoff run. Pete's point, an excellent one on CJ Carr, and probably if you're talking playoffs, an extended run would have been really good for a Tay Johnson. So as good as he
Devonta
looked.
Smith could have increased some looks because now he was playing good football and the season ended after he was just playing hurt football most of the year. He got hurt the week of the A&M game. He's never really good until he was fully back, right? They were considering redshirting Devonta Smith. Devontae Smith, yeah. So maybe Devontae Smith with the run to the championship game playing nickel. He was, as Pete said, they needed him out there, and all of a sudden, you were right, Pete. When you said it, I'm like, I don't know, do they need him out there?
They were
but
they're
then
just
he was good.
And that was there's so many shames of it, but the shame of it, some of the guys that were really ascending, Devontae Smith was ascending. Eli Raridan was playing real quality football. Tay Johnson, I know, was interrupted along the way, but there were a lot of guys that had a better second half than they did first half of the season. We move on to question number 7. Do your job, 23. Does ND need to change how they operate camp 2 years in a row? Some questionable lineup decisions that were quickly reversed once games started.
Yes, I just don't know how they need to change it.
Right, that's what I was going to say.
I mean, it's like the end result has been poor. So you need to change the process of camp, but I have absolutely no idea what you need to do to make that work better.
I wrote off the Northern Illinois one as the old thing I brought up that they don't handle success very well, and everyone told them they were the best team in the world when they beat A&M, and they didn't have a good week of practice, and they lost. But all the changes that were made after games 2.5, they stunk against Purdue on defense, man, the first half of that game. I know Schuler wasn't there, but you should be able to operate against one of the worst teams in college football when you don't have a Don Schuler. I think you can do it. People have done it. I know people have done it. Notre Dame could have
Every
done
other
it
team
too.
Purdue played did it.
Yes. So, some the whatever was handled defensively in camp, and then I will of course speculate that they could have been sharper offensively if they chose CJ Carr earlier. But you can't make someone choose CJ Carr earlier if Kenny Minchie's playing really good football and you don't know who to choose, right? That's a tough call too. So defensively, heck yeah, and they don't have that quarterback problem this year.
Well, and also here's what will automatically change is Chris Ash won't be back running a defense in a college football preseason camp for the first time in 5 or 6 years, which was a huge element, I believe, of last year. And so you expect a more fluid and aware approach to camp, I would say, when preseason camp 26 opens.
I think the first person that comes to mind when I read the question was Carson Hobbs playing against Miami. Now, at the time, I think we were speculating, hey, is Devontae Smith fully healthy? Then Devontae Smith eventually revealed, Tim, I believe,
he got hurt after that game.
Right, before the Texas A&M game. So Carson Hobbs chasing Malachi Toney was really, really not a very good matchup for Notre Dame.
The communication in the defense was so bad to begin the season. I mean, all the palms up type, that we saw on the field. Like that went away by October, but it needs to not be there in September. So that, installing it differently. I know we go back to Al Golden in the red zone, how poor they were. That was sort of like a statistical quirk. What happened with Chris Ash in the beginning of this season was a fatal flaw. So you got to figure out a way to know who you are better than you did this year.
Speaking of palms up, Pete, you texted me. You texted me the other day.
How are you working this into this podcast? Go ahead.
Because when you say palms up, that was how I always described Jay Bateman when he was DC at North Carolina. Samson sent me.
I didn't know where this was going.
Samson sent me the other day the notice that Jay Bateman will no longer be coaching at Texas A&M. He will be. Is he the actual coordinator of Kentucky?
It's a job. They have the
Like
job.
he's still, I know, but he's still getting coordinator jobs. Was that a coordinator job,
It
Pete?
is a coordinator job. Yeah.
Oh
Wow,
man.
I mean, you want to talk about retreads? That one doesn't work. Mike Elko had to take play calling duties away from at A&M. Otherwise, they would be Notre Dame would have that playoff spot.
Well, in fairness to the Kentucky situation, and there's still some fluidity there, but Will Stein immediately tried to hire Chris Hampton as his defensive coordinator, and Dan Lanning immediately elevated Chris Hampton to defensive coordinator as soon as Tosh Lupoy got the California job. So Will Stein did not revert to the retread carousel immediately in tabbing Jay Bateman. And yes, I agree with you that he's been an incredibly ineffective and overrated defensive coordinator more often than not. He does bring a great veteran presence to Will Stein's first staff, and then we'll see if he actually ends up calling the defense.
You know what he is at Irish Illustrated. He's neither over or underrated, guys. He is properly rated.
Properly rated.
Right. We do it right sometimes. There we have it. Next question. Denver Maximus. Last year, Marty Biagi received all the praise for his special teams accomplishments and creativity. While that creativity was still there, how much criticism should he receive for a truly miserable field goal kicking game? Even if they made the playoff, Endy's kicking game woes would have eventually cost them. What a problem for Notre Dame to have, by the way, I would like to interject. What do you see Endy doing to remedy this huge weakness heading into next year?
Go ahead, guys.
I mean, I would expect Notre Dame to be active in the portal there and to, continue figuring out what they've got with Eric Schmidt. But there's no question it was a massive weakness. And I mean, not even the field goals, but we'll never know, even with the blown holding call and the other chaos that had to happen to allow Texas A&M to win, we'll never know just off of a simple PAT how that game might have turned out in
Yeah.
overtime. And so when we talk about defining moments, hell, I can't believe we left that out. The missed PAT against Texas A&M might be the singularly defining moment of this season.
NBC certainly treated it that way. I
Yeah.
don't. I mean, it's a tough question. It was a disaster. I think that they had a bad eval and got unlucky with Noah Burnett. I just don't think it was like one thing. As I was watching the college football awards and saw Oklahoma's kicker win the Lou Groza award, and then he's a transfer from UTSA, and I'm like, come on. Look, I don't. We've seen plenty of bad kicker evals out of high school. I have no idea if Eric Schmidt's going to be good, but the returns early are bad. And I don't, I understand Bryce's point. Like, you continue to see what you have there, but that's way different than being like, well, we're just going to hope for the best.
Yeah, no.
Cannot do that.
Right. And we hardly hear this to the coaching staff's credit. They said mid to late year, like basically we never intended to play Eric Schmidt this year, or
Yep.
we thought we would get to redshirt him and just have him kick in 4 games and maybe also kick off in the postseason. So how much does this true trial by the proverbial football fire help Eric Schmidt? How much does it enlighten the coaches that, man, we have to have wide receiver, backup quarterback, D line, and place kicker in our top 4 needs when we go down the portal aisles in the NCAA football store?
I was surprised when I heard the name Noah Burnett as the guy that they had chosen. Not that he was bad, but he really two of his 3. Well, he had a spectacular one year in between 2 kind of average years. That was number 1. Number 2, he wasn't a guy that had a lot of distance to his game. Having said that, like I've never blamed a special teams coach on kicking problems per se, but because Biagi is a former kicker punter himself, you kind of put a little bit more of the burden on him. I still tend to say, kickers got to kick, man. I mean, if you've reached this stage, it's on you to be successful. Then you throw in, and he was accurate until he started having some hip, leg, whatever issues. So I don't know. No, I was surprised at him. I still have confidence with Eric Schmidt, but oh man, like you look at
You have confidence in Eric Schmidt for kickoff and punting, right? You don't have confidence in Eric
No,
Schmidt.
I mean, I have confidence that I think that his background is that he will improve. But you just look at the extra points against Stanford. They were all over the place from left upright to right upright. So, um, look, everybody, when you're a coach, you take responsibility for what your guys do, and his guys at that position didn't do a good job. You have to give him credit for Rendell. Rendell settled down, became really, really good. So credit to him there. And I guess if you're going to blame, you got to blame, when guys don't perform.
And I think because of a portal evaluation rather than a high school kicker evaluation, which is just really hard to do, portal evaluation's got to hit better than Noah Burnett.
Agreed.
Yep. Spencer Schrader, Blake Groupie, January Jeter.
Groupie kicked a 60-yarder yesterday.
He kicked a 60-yarder like he was walking to his backyard and decided to kick one over. Unreal.
61, wasn't it? I thought it was 61 yards.
It was a bomb.
I thought, maybe I thought it was JB, but I mean, talk about 5 foot nothing, 100 nothing. How in the world?
Yeah.
How in the world is that dude kicking like that?
You needed to hit on Notre Dame better than they did. I mean, the North Carolina writers, not that this is like you look at it like I would just surprise Notre Dame was playing the national championship game when they said let's replace Jeter with Noah Burnett, and I thought that was an astute comment.
I agree, and I agreed with that at the time. Yes, certainly.
Final question, changing gears because we will be back Thursday for more football talk. Dylan Link 123. Is this Notre Dame men's basketball team actually fun to watch again? Shooters galore. What are your predictions for ACC play in the men's team?
Unlike you guys, I was actually at the game on Saturday.
Well, I'll be at Purdue Fort Wayne on Sunday afternoon.
I might be there for that one too, which is a sign like I don't cover the team, so I have to pay to go to the games, and I will gladly pay to watch this team play.
Because your boy's a point guard.
Something I would have said for the last few years. And even I realized they were playing Evansville, but to get essentially nothing from Jalen Harrelson, Cole Serta, and Carson Tout didn't really do his usual Carson Tout things. And then to get that from Sir Muhammad and Braden Shrewsbury, like they could shoot it. I realize Marcus Burton is out, but like they just seem like they play well together. Which I haven't seen a Notre Dame basketball team look like they play well together in a minute.
Yeah, and Harrelson has moments where, hopefully, Pete, you're buying those cheaper general admission tickets. But Harrelson
on SeatGeek, I got my tickets for $8. Green means good, red means bad.
Did you use the green dot? Because the green means
yeah. I thought I saw $8. I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah. Well, so my point is definitely Jalen Harrelson has nights where he's worth the price of admission, even if you're buying three $8 tickets. So, they're fun to see. They're playing much smarter basketball, and maybe that doesn't qualify as fun, but when you've watched a boatload of really bad basketball in recent years, smart basketball seems suddenly joyous, and they're cutting down on turnovers. They're making better decisions in a number of ways, and they do have some more athleticism and some more versatility out of a number of guys. What's going to happen in ACC play? I think the ACC is fairly mediocre this year, behind probably UNC, Duke, and Louisville. I think it's pretty fluid beyond that. So if they're going to get hot, and if Burton somehow gets back sooner rather than later from that, who knows what the real timeline is, but the ACC is open enough that if Notre Dame's playing really confidently and these guys keep developing, they could be a top 6 ACC team if they catch fire.
I'm not that optimistic yet, but I hear what you're saying, JB. I'm concerned about the style of play now that Burton's out. Now, you lose a great player, so the style of offensive play is what concerns me. I thought I liked them better, of course, when Burton was healthy, but with the basketball in Harrelson's hands, doing what he does, because that's his game. Pete, you saw him play at La Lumiere.
I paid more to see him at La Lumiere than I did.
Exactly. So you knew full well what I love about his game.
Or they paid more to see him come from La Lumiere.
And I know I wrote this in his film review, is when he gets in the lane, he pivots, he ducks a shoulder. He's always leaning in to the basket. And when he gets a defender up in the air and he's leaning into the basket, that's a gimme. I mean, that's a flat layup from like 8 feet where he uses his length to get that. Um, what Sir Muhammad did the other night was really important. I don't believe for a second that he will do that consistently, but if he does, that's huge because he was making shots and he was playing the style, kind of the style of Harrelson because he's long and he can do that. Love Carson Tout, love his game except for his free throw shooting. He is the leader of that team every night. Every night he's the voice of that team. When Shrewsbury, you'd like to see Shrewsbury be more consistent as a 3-point shooter, but when he's hot, he's really really hot. There's some valleys in there though that kind of even that out. Certainly Cole Serta shooting the basketball much better. Sundra, there's a handful of guys there that it's going to be hit and miss every time they go out, but fortunately they're deep enough that you can factor in some of the misses along the way. In terms of just overall performance, Kebajai is always going to be hit or miss. But they are fun. There's no doubt. It's more fun to watch them. It'd just be a hell of a lot more fun if Burton was on the court because then I feel they would be able to maximize their talents. And right now, I think sometimes it's still too much Harrelson dribbling. That happened a lot at the beginning of the Idaho game. I thought the win over Idaho was significant because Idaho put competent basketball players on the court. There were 3 or 4 competent basketball players on the court the entire time, so I thought that was impressive. But yes, way more fun to watch. Kaler, the long freshman who they really like that can do a bunch of different things. It's going to be hit or miss at times, but he had 4 blocks in the game the other night, so they're a lot more fun.
I think if Burton we're coming back in 1 month. We're coming in 1 month.
It's going to be more like 2.5.
Yeah, it's going to be like 2.5. But if he were to come back in 1 month, this would be almost a blessing because Harrelson with the ball in his hands and Burton rejoining that would be a huge boost. However, if it's 8 weeks to 10, then you're joining for March and the hay is in the barn, and maybe it's a huge join for March for for the ACC tournament or something along those lines.
Well,
but it's,
you probably get Marcus Burton back for next year.
Yeah, probably true.
Which may not have happened
back for next year though. This point, so
that's going to be tough.
All right, that will be tough. As Pete smiles, knowing Pete knows that from his Lalamere days. That's good. Green means good, Pete. Way to get the good tickets. I applaud that effort.
Thanks for listening to the Irish Illustrated podcast. That's where you learned that.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. For John Bryce of Football Scoop, Pete Sampson of The Athletic, Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated, I'm Tim O'Malley. Thanks for watching and listening. We will see you Thursday at Irish Illustrated Insider.